And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Tuesday morning, flying weather. A lot of IFR here out over the Bering Sea from Adak northward there to Gamble, with better conditions off to the east. Patch of IFR here along the north side of the Alaska Peninsula, and some more IFR for the western Brooks Range there, mostly on the southern slopes. Eastern Arctic coast, VFR. Right through the interior here, a lot of VFR right down to Togiak and Dillingham. Marginal VFR, Kodiak Island, on up into Cook Inlet, eastward to Prince William Sound, the Copper River Basin, and southeast coast. Starting the day off pretty marginal, and not much change for the afternoon Tuesday. Marginal VFR continues here for the southeast coast. Gulf of Alaska into Prince William Sound, improving here, becoming VFR. Over Cook Inlet, Madanuska-Susitna Valley, Copper River Basin, and continuing VFR right up until you get to the Brooks Range, back to VFR for the North Slope, and some marginal VFR there right along the central Arctic coast. And out to the west, Nunivak Island and the Pribilofs, marginal VFR, but IFR just about ready to move into St. Paul Island, and that covers Atka Island westward there, probably to the Komodorskis. Eastern Aleutians, VFR day tomorrow, as well as the Alaska Peninsula, on up into Bristol Bay. And then for the morning hours Wednesday, big area IFR here with the, or out here over the Bering Sea, and the Aleutians, improving as you head toward the coast, becoming VFR for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Bristol Bay area, and northward until you get to about the Noatak Valley there and along and just south of the Brooks Range. Marginal VFR conditions. North Slope Arctic Coast, VFR. Central Interior VFR. In fact, even the southern areas VFR, except for some marginal VFR along the Alaska Range. And also into Prince William Sound, southern Kenai Peninsula. IFR here slipping up on the east side of Kodiak, Fognak Islands. And improving here for the Panhandle, mostly VFR. And that becomes VFR for the afternoon on Wednesday here for the southeast coast. Yakutat marginal VFR, and looks like some IFR developing along the south side of the Kenai Peninsula up into western Prince William Sound, and marginal VFR for the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. Otherwise, the interior all the way up into the Arctic Ocean, good VFR, and that extends out to the southwest coast. Deteriorating conditions around St. Lawrence Island, Nunivak Island. Solid IFR for the Pribilofs and all of the Aleutians into about False Pass here. A little bit of improvement out towards Chimianat too. And moving on to the Brooks Range passes, looking like this for Tuesday. Marginal VFR for both Anatuvik and Adigan. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR in the forecast. Forecasting VFR also for rainy and windy. Isabel as well. And for Mentasta, marginal VFR becoming VFR. Tanita, same forecast, marginal VFR becoming VFR. And Portage probably staying on the marginal side throughout the entire day, as is Chilkoot and White. And from there, looking at the freezing levels, about 4,000 feet over the northern interior, 6,000 feet to the south here, and 6,000 to 8,000 feet over the southern Panhandle, and then ranging from 6,000 feet St. Lawrence Island all the way down to 12,000 to 14,000 feet over the western Aleutians. Icing, got some icing here with a system passing just north of the Arctic coast there, so elevated threat of some isolated moderate icing there for the North Slope areas, also through the Bering Strait, maybe a little heavier here out in the middle of the Bering Sea there. And that zone extends down to the Aleutians. Otherwise, with that next system, icing starting to move up onto Kodiak Island, and that'll probably spread over the area there tomorrow evening and overnight tomorrow night as this whole area shifts northward. And for the jet stream tomorrow, high pressure at 33,000 feet here over the interior. So north winds, 75 knots, eastern Arctic coast, good southwest winds there, Seward Peninsula and the northwest coast at about 70 knots. Stronger jet here over the northern Panhandle there out of the west at 115 knots, and strong westerly flow here up to 130 knots there over the western Bering Sea. So any systems developing out there move pretty quickly off to the east. And for 9,000 feet here, 60 to 50 knot winds there for the Aleutians out of the west, and south-southwest 40 knots there, eastern Bering Sea through the strait there into the Chukchi Sea. Northwest 40 to 45 knots cutting across the eastern Arctic coast and northeast interior. Lighter winds down across southern Alaska, kind of the calm before the storm here to the south, with those winds coming northward 3,000 feet. Quite a band there of strong winds in advance of that front, starting to creep up towards Sitkinak Island tomorrow. Otherwise, south flow here, south-southwest 35 to 50 knots, strongest through the Bering Strait. Turned westerly 35 to 40 knots there for the Arctic coast and North Slope. Light winds, southeast interior and the Panhandle, and westerlies 35 to 50 knots over the central Aleutians. And for turbulence, considerable moderate turbulence St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait there, right up to Kivalina, Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, and Point Ley. And heavy turbulence heading up toward Kodiak Island, but not quite getting there until tomorrow evening. And then some moderate turbulence also for the central Aleutians.